Aerial Powers beef with Cheryl Reeve. It is Aerial Powers, the new player for the Indiana Fever, who they just signed, and her beef with Cheryl Reeve. And if you guys are wondering why this is relevant, the Indiana Fever tonight are in fact playing the Minnesota Lynx.
The WNBA thought it had seen every bit of chaos this season, but then came the headline that flipped the league upside down. Aerial Powers, the Indiana Fever's newest recruit, is in the middle of a viral beef with none other than Cheryl Reeve. That's right, the same Cheryl Reeve who has been coaching the Minnesota Lynx with an iron grip now has her old players stepping right back into the spotlight, wearing Indiana colors, ready for round 2 of their grudge match. Powers didn't just stroll into the Fever's roster out of nowhere. She arrived on a 7-day hardship contract because the team is dealing with so many injuries it looks more like an infirmary than a professional basketball squad. Caitlin Clark is nursing her groin, Sophie Cunningham is sidelined, Colson and Aari McDonald are down, and even Odyssey Sims has been hobbling around. So Indiana needed reinforcements, and who do they call? Aerial Powers. Talk about adding gasoline to a fire.
The Indiana Fever have signed Aerial Powers to a 7-day hardship contract. A very spicy but very capable player. So let's go over everything there is to know about Aerial Powers.
But here's where it gets messy. Powers and Reeve don't just have a little tension, they have a history of pure bad blood. Back in 2022, Powers was actually the top scorer for the Lynx. She was putting up buckets, averaging over 14 points per game, proving she could lead an offense. And yet, instead of being celebrated, she found herself clashing with Reeve at every turn. Suddenly her minutes dropped. 10 minutes here, 12 minutes there. From star player to role player in the blink of an eye. And here's the kicker, it wasn't about talent. Powers could flat out play. This was about control. Cheryl Reeve is known for running her team with strict discipline. Powers, on the other hand, is outspoken, fiery, and doesn't exactly bite her tongue. You can see where this was going. The two clashed so badly that Powers eventually made it public. She wanted off the team.
It just dawned on me, man, that Cheryl Reeve and Aerial Powers, man, was going at it when she was on that team. Now, she was signed to that team, I think, in 2022. She was actually their top scorer, now that I think about it. She was their top scorer. And all of a sudden, I don't know, they was just clashing a little bit. And then I remember Aerial Powers just coming out and just saying, hey, I want to go to a different team. I want to be on another team. She just blatantly told the world, I don't want to be here anymore, basically.
She told the world she didn't want to be in Minnesota anymore. It wasn't behind closed doors. It was out in the open, raw and unfiltered. Now fast forward to this season, and fate has decided to stir the pot again. Indiana, desperate for healthy bodies, signs Powers right before a matchup against the Minnesota Lynx. The timing couldn't have been more dramatic if it was scripted. The woman who once felt betrayed by Reeve is about to line up against her old coach, and the cameras are ready to capture every glare, every eye roll, and every bucket. And if you think this is just about basketball, think again. There's history that stretches beyond the court, pettiness that spilled into real life. At one point, Reeve and Powers were on a flight together, assigned seats right next to each other. What happened? Cheryl Reeve literally switched seats with her wife just to avoid sitting by Powers.
Excuse me. Oh, this is my seat, sir. Okay. Yeah. No. Hey, how you doing? Now she's switching with her wife. Crazy.
That's not coaching tension. That's I can't stand to breathe the same air as you energy. So here's the setup. Indiana signs Powers out of necessity, but in doing so, they have also reignited one of the most entertaining feuds in recent WNBA memory. On one side, the fiery scorer looking for redemption. On the other, the hard-nosed coach who benched her in the first place. This isn't just a signing, it's a storyline tailor-made for drama. But let me warn you, what happened happened next would turn a simple hardship contract into one of the most talked about storylines in women's basketball. If you thought this was just about a player getting a second chance, think again. This is about revenge, pride, and the kind of drama that fuels highlight reels and viral tweets.
You're taking your top scorer, by the way, your top scorer, and making her play less minutes. I don't know what was going on between the two, but man, they did not like each other.
Aerial Powers isn't some random bench warmer Indiana picked up just to fill space. She was once the offensive engine for Cheryl Reeve's Minnesota Lynx, and being benched after leading the team in scoring? That's not just a demotion, that's a slap in the face. Back in 2022, Powers was unstoppable at times. She bullied defenders in the paint, hit tough shots on the perimeter, and carried a team that was desperate for offense. Yet, instead of empowering her, Cheryl Reeve decided to cut her minutes. And this wasn't subtle, it was obvious. Powers went from playing starter minutes to barely seeing the floor. The tension became so bad that Reeve didn't even try to hide it. She threw shade, Powers clapped back, and before long, their beef spilled into the public. Now here's where things heat up even more. When the Fever added Powers, they didn't just sign a scorer, they signed a player who has every reason to torch her old coach. Every time Powers checks into the game against Minnesota, the cameras will swing to Reeve. Every bucket Powers makes will feel like a dagger aimed directly at her, and if she goes off for 20 points, forget it. The headlines will write themselves. This is also personal for Indiana fans. They already don't like Cheryl Reeve. Why? Because she played a major role in leaving Caitlin Clark off the Team USA Olympic roster. Fever fans haven't forgiven her for that snub, and they probably never will. Add Aerial Powers into the mix, and suddenly every matchup between Indiana and Minnesota becomes a grudge match. And here's the wild part. Indiana didn't sign Powers for drama. They signed her out of desperation. The roster is gutted. Clark is recovering. Sophie Cunningham can't go. Even Sydney Colson and Odyssey Sims are sidelined. That's a laundry list of injuries, and it left Indiana scrambling. But sometimes desperation creates opportunity. By bringing in Powers, they not only filled a roster gap, they set the stage for a storyline the league can't ignore. Let's be honest here. The Fever needed energy. They needed a spark, and Powers brings exactly that. She's fiery, she's outspoken, and she doesn't shy away from attention. She thrives on proving people wrong, and this is the ultimate test. If she delivers against Reeve, she turns into an instant fan favorite in Indiana. And if she fails, well, Reeve gets to smirk and say she was right all along. But here's the twist. This feud isn't just fueling headlines, it's also fueling both teams on the court. Indiana is desperate for a win, and Powers is desperate for redemption. Minnesota, on the other hand, is loaded, confident, and has every reason to shut her down. The collision course is set, and nobody's backing away. The funny thing about this whole saga is how much it exposes Cheryl Reeve's personality as a coach. She doesn't just run the Minnesota Lynx, she controls every inch of it. Reeve is notorious for being a perfectionist, a strategist, and yes, a little bit of a control freak. She likes her players to fit neatly into her system. No drama, no noise. The problem, Aerial Powers is the exact opposite of that. Powers isn't quiet. She's not the type to keep frustrations bottled up. She's vocal, active online, and unafraid to push back. That's part of what makes her a fan favorite, but it's also what made her a nightmare for a coach who wanted everyone in line. The clash was inevitable, and when it came, it was spectacular. Here's where things got completely off the rails. At one point, the tension between the two became so obvious that even off-court moments turned into spectacles. Remember that airplane story? Reeve and Powers were seated next to each other on a flight, and Reeve literally swapped seats with her wife just to avoid sitting next to her. That's not strategy, that's straight up pettiness, and that pettiness has followed both women ever since. For Reeve, the message was clear. She wasn't going to bend for Powers. For Powers, the response was just as loud. She wasn't going to change who she was to fit Reeve's system. It was oil and water, and eventually something had to give. What gave was Powers' playing time, and eventually her spot on the roster. Fast forward to now. By joining Indiana, Powers has walked right back into the orbit of her old coach. Only this time, she's not under Reeve's control. She's on the opposing side, and that changes everything. Every possession she plays against against the Lynx is going to be charged with extra meaning. Every drive, every rebound, every defensive stand, all of it is personal. Indiana might have signed her out of necessity, but they've stumbled into one of the most dramatic storylines of the year. And the best part, everyone knows it, the players know it, the coaches know it, the fans definitely know it. It's the type of drama that turns a regular season matchup into must-watch television. And don't forget this detail. Reeve isn't just beefing with Powers, she's also taken shots at Indiana as a whole. When Fever players wore Kelsey Mitchell MVP shirts earlier in the season, Reeve rolled her eyes, went on a rant, and declared MVPs only come from the best teams. Translation, Indiana is a joke in her book. Add that insult to the Caitlin Clark snub, and you see why Fever fans already had smoke for her before Powers even arrived. At this point, the basketball gods must be laughing, because this isn't just about a feud, it's about timing. Powers didn't just land on the Fever randomly. She landed there right before they had to face Minnesota. If this were a movie script, people would say it was too obvious, but it's real life, and it's happening now. For Aerial Powers, this is the chance of a lifetime, not because of the contract. It's only 7 days, but because of what's at stake. Every shot she takes against the Lynx is going to feel like a personal statement. Every defensive stop is going to scream, "You should never have benched me." And for Indiana, this is perfect. They get a player who's not only motivated, but also playing with a chip on her shoulder the size of a championship trophy. Now think about what this means for Reeve. She's not gonna take this lightly. She'll treat this like it's the finals. Minnesota's defenders are going to be told, don't let her breathe. Kayla McBride, Courtney Williams, Bridget Carlton, they'll all take turns guarding her, making life miserable, because the last thing Reeve wants is to see her old player lighting up the scoreboard on another team, especially Indiana. But here's where it gets really juicy. Indiana doesn't have the luxury of slowly easing Powers into their system. With half the roster sidelined, they need her now. That means more minutes, more touches, and more opportunities for her to prove herself. This isn't a player waiting in the wings. This is a player thrown directly into the fire, and she's loving it. And here's what makes it poetic. The same coach who once cut her minutes to almost nothing now has to watch her take on a starring role. That's karma showing up in sneakers. And no matter how the box score looks at the end of the night, the storyline is already locked in. Aerial Powers versus Cheryl Reeve, Part 2. This isn't just basketball anymore. It's soap opera drama played out on hardwood floors. And whether Indiana wins or loses, you can bet the cameras will be tracking every interaction between Powers and her old coach. So now we arrive at the million-dollar question: who actually benefits from this chaos? On one hand, you have Aerial Powers, the underdog with something to prove. On the other, you have Cheryl Reeve, the veteran coach with a stacked roster and a reputation to protect. Both sides are fueled by pride, and both sides want to win this personal war. For Powers, this is her shot at redemption. It's a chance to show the league she still belongs at a high level. Every basket she scores against Minnesota is more than 2 points on the scoreboard. It's a message. It's proof that Reeve was wrong to sideline her, wrong to cut her minutes, and wrong to let her go. For Reeve, this is about control. She can't let the narrative flip. If Powers shines, it makes her look bad. So she'll throw everything at her to prevent that from happening. And with Minnesota's depth, she has the tools to do it. That's what makes this matchup so compelling. It's not just talent versus talent, it's pride versus pride. But here's the real twist. This drama doesn't just impact one game, it ripples through the entire league. Fever fans are going to rally behind Powers. Lynx fans are going to defend Reeve. Social media is going to amplify every little moment. And before long, this becomes more than a feud. It becomes a storyline that defines the season. For Indiana, that might not be such a bad thing. They've been desperate for wins, desperate for momentum, and desperate for a spark. Powers could be exactly that, not just as a player, but as a lightning rod for attention and energy. If she delivers, Indiana suddenly has a folk hero, someone fans can rally around alongside Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell. And for Reeve, the challenge is clear. She has to prove she was right. That means shutting down Powers, shutting down the Fever, and reminding everyone why the Lynx are sitting at the top of the standings. Anything less, and the narrative flips against her. At the end of the day, this isn't just basketball, it's a grudge match with real stakes, and it's about to play out in front of everyone. Whether Powers goes off or gets shut down, one thing's guaranteed: the drama isn't going away anytime soon.